Hey there, everyone. It's Keith Hayden, the digital novelist, and I've had a lot of thoughts going about AI, specifically for the creativity space. So, if you are an artist, a musician, a writer, primarily fiction, I want to talk to you because I've just spent the morning watching and consuming a lot of content about AI for and against current events, and I follow it pretty closely. And I just had it on my mind to do kind of I wanted to go on the record about my stance with AI and how I use it. And I know if you're like me, you're probably paying attention to a lot of these videos right now because, yeah, it's in our sphere, it's a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it. Everyone's going to have to cross that bridge eventually. Are you going to use it? What do you think about it? Good or bad? Quality? How's it going to affect your business? All that stuff. So if you've been thinking about this for a while, stick around. You're going to want to watch this video. As usual, subscribe if you're liking my stuff. I do a lot of experiments here on this channel, my own writing, and I just have big plans for what I'm going to do. So I wanted to lay some context first because I think these are best with context. I got in on commercial AI. Of course, AI has been around for many decades, and we all know, you probably heard that by now, but when we're talking AI as of current, from 2022 to 2025 currently, I got in at the beginning. I had just run my 6th and final marathon, and I remember I could barely walk. I was in Japan, and I was kind of recovering, and at the time I was heavy on Twitter X. And so I saw that this new thing called ChatGPT was coming out. And I was like, oh, okay. And previously I had been in some tech spaces. I was finishing up 100 Days of Code challenge at the time. And so I was kind of connected. I was in the Web3 kind of space, not like hardcore in the Web3. I was like a beginner, but I was dabbling with a lot of those things. So ChatGPT comes out, and I remember just being blown away the first time I tried it. First thing I tried to do was write a fiction story. And it turned out pretty good for what it could do at the time. And of course, it was a ton of steering, and there were no guides or anything. So I remember after I did that, I'm in a Discord server with a bunch of other creators. And I was like, hey, did y'all hear about this ChatGPT thing? And at the time, they were like, no, not really. We don't really know. Would you be willing to do a training on it? So I put together this training, and it was just a pretty shitty webcam video on my computer. And that ended up being my first video that went viral. It got like 35,000, 40 views, viral for me, right? For a small channel, not millions. It didn't blow up like that, but it got pretty big. And that was because this was very early days. Very few people had done anything with it yet. There were no guides, there were no YouTube channels. And so that was my kind of beginning. So that led into 23. That was late 22. 23 comes up. And 23, I call that the year of, let's see, what did I write here? The year of skeptical enthusiasm. That's what I wrote here. You can see in my notes. Skeptical enthusiasm. Because I quickly started to grapple, which I'm sure you have, with holy shit, I had already published my first novel at this point, and I was working on the podcast version of it. And I was like, damn, this is kind of weird that this thing can do what I can do. At the time, it wasn't as good. Now it can do it better, so to speak. I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I started grappling with it. Like, what does this mean for creativity? What does this mean for me as a creator, the future of things and all this stuff? And I remember I wrote a blog post. I don't think it's up anymore because I changed my website. But I wrote a blog post about kind of this hollowing of human creativity and how I was really kind of keep tabs on how I felt anytime I generated something, especially if it was long. I started with like small blog posts, all this stuff, and every time I kind of put something out and published it, I was kind of just gauging my reaction. How did it feel to make that? And so that was one of my early concerns with AI was, yeah, I technically made it. I wrote the prompts and I had the idea and all this stuff, but when you don't struggle with the words, when you don't struggle with the concepts, you're not thinking through the process, like whether I'm writing fiction or nonfiction, that part, you skip that when you use AI. And that's a negative thing to me. Because most of the time when I write, I'm thinking through something, or I'm feeling through something, or I'm trying to figure something out for myself. And I think that's one of the things that you lose from using AI. And so I was wrestling with that concept, but then I was also making friends. I found a really good community on Twitter, X, and a lot of people were experimenting with AI. We're very excited. I mean, these were the days, there would literally be hundreds of people in spaces. Like, this was all of 2023. And it was a lot of fun. It was fun. I met a lot of people. Some of the people that I knew that I met back then, they're big voices in the AI space now, working for bigger companies, or they got their own platform, things like that. And so that was 23. I experimented across the gamut, right? Writing, music, pretty much anything that was in the creative realm. I was experimenting. I was using Midjourney at the time, trying to figure out like, how does it work? Experimenting with some AI videos, doing that type of thing. But all that time in 23, I was like, this shit's not ready for prime time. Like, it was kind of the funny days of AI. And this is when I think AI had its breakout moment in 2023, probably mid to quarter 2023, that summer, 2 years ago. Because I remember it was on the news, people were talking about it, people were trying it. Oh, somebody's coming. Just walking down my neighborhood. But people were trying it. It was kind of this adoption. And then probably by the end of that year, things just kind of cooled off, because in 23, it just wasn't ready. People would kind of get it to try and do things, and it was kind of a ha, kind of this parlor trick. I remember generating some songs with early Suno. If you remember the Discord days of Suno and Midjourney, I was there for all of that. And yeah, it was good for some goofy songs, and there were some flashes of brilliance there, but for the most part, it wasn't commercially viable on its own, and everybody kind of knew that. So a lot of people walked away from it, kind of gave up and said AI is shitty and it doesn't work and all this stuff. But then people like me stayed with it. So 24, I'm gonna have to speed this up because my phone is like, device is too hot, video may stop. Okay, so I'm gonna speed up a little bit. So 24 comes, and that's when I really wanted to put to the test. If you go back on not only this YouTube channel, because I removed a lot of my earlier videos, but if you go back to my Digital Novelist podcast last summer, it was about a year ago, the very first episode is me talking about how I tried to write this novel primarily with AI, and I basically fucked myself because I had to go back and rewriting it. And that was an interesting experiment, because I just saw how I felt. Remember, I was telling you how I'm judging how I'm feeling every time when I write this, when I use AI. And it didn't feel bad for the reasons that you think, like the ethical stuff or whatever. It was just more, I realized that I'm not going to get this original story, that I have this idea. I'm not going to get it in the form that I like if I'm primarily relying on the AI. I'm going to have to do some remixing in order to get it the way I like it, in order for it not to be like all the other stuff out there. And it was a truly unique story. That novel came out last November. It's called Gates of Okinawa. You can check it out. It's on my website. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. And so that leads to this year where I feel like I finally found the right balance with AI, to where I use it. How do I use it right now? I mainly use it as a refining thing. So I basically my process for writing right now, I'm working on a short novel. It's a bit novella, something like that. But I will write on my own, just me, and then I will go to ChatGPT and help it refine, because I'm writing it for a specific audience. I'm writing it for sci-fi. It's a techno romance. So I want it to be for sci-fi and romance readers. So that's what I use ChatGPT for, because it's great for the tropes. It knows exactly, it's trained on all these different books. Oh, I got this bug bothering me. It's trained on all these different books. So that's good for refining, like, okay, does this hit for the audience? How would romance readers respond to this? How would sci-fi readers respond to that? How can I refine this? That type of thing. That's basically how I use it for creative stuff. Now, outside of creative stuff, AI is super useful when it comes to marketing, when it comes to other nitnoid things, writing blurbs, all this stuff that's not like writing the books. Then AI is like, okay, I'm going to use it. But that's not really what this video is for. So why am I making this? Basically because I feel like there's a spectrum of AI use. And depending on what side of the argument or the issue that you're on, typically determines how you view AI. And you know the sides, right? There's the AI maxis, hardcore, and then the AI haters. These are the typical camps that the lines are drawn online and in person sometimes too with AI. Let's talk about AI haters. I know them, I've run into them, I've come face to face with them online and in person. And what I've found with AI haters is that most of them haven't really tried AI. They were in that initial 2023 drop that tried it, or maybe they've kind of dipped their toe back in to see what it can do, but they haven't really looked at it close enough to really understand what it is or how it might be beneficial for them. They see other people that use AI, they cite the ethical issues. That's the big one. That's a big one that comes up. Some of them cite energy. Some of them cite bias. These are all problems with AI, by the way. I'm not saying they're resolved. They are big problems. But this is the AI hater camp. And I've noticed a lot of big names in the AI hater camp. I'm not going to name any specifically, but there's a lot of authority people who have taken stances on AI recently. And of course, they are staunchly anti-AI. And I'll say to myself, that makes sense. Because if I was a big name writer, and I've been writing for decades, and I have a whole team, I have artists, I have cover designers, I have layout people, I have marketing, I have everything locked in, it's just a machine, I probably would have not like AI either. Because it's a direct challenge to my position. Now all of a sudden, you've got this tool that allows pretty much anybody to make quote unquote art and challenge my position, take away potential readers, affect my bottom line. So my advice would listen, you shouldn't be in either extreme. And don't worry, if you're AI hardcore, I'm gonna talk to you too. But if you are somebody who's on the fence, like you're a younger person, or you're somebody who's just like finding out like what the hell is this whole AI thing, and you're trying to figure it out, these AI haters, you shouldn't really listen to them. Because most of the time they don't know what they're talking about. They have not tried the technology deep enough to really say anything about it. And then second of all, they're scaring people off because they don't want their bottom line affected. Now, I know there are some people who are some big names that are anti-AI, and they are truly like, they believe that it's not good and all this stuff. And that's fine. But I'm saying, like, in their position, it's hard for me not to imagine that they have a huge incentive to be anti-AI. If for nothing else, then it's going to affect their dollars at the end of the day. Because if they come out strong for AI, and this has happened to some people, then they're going to get hate, especially right now when the technology is still in this disputed phase. So that's AI haters. Now, let me talk about the AI hardcore, the maxis out there. Especially in the creative space, these people are just as troublesome. Because a lot of them are selling the AI dream, right? And I've seen this. I saw this with Web3. I saw this with drop shipping early on. That's when I pretty much got started around like 2016, 2017. I got started like in the online business space. So I've seen this in other sectors of people like, make your faceless YouTube channel, write your book in one click, all this shit. Or use AI to do the creative work for you so you can sit back and make the money. And I've been watching several videos of people who have, a lot of creators who have a similar stance of, why the hell would you want a machine to do the creative work for you? Why? Like, I get it, like to be faster, to be more efficient, to all that stuff. I get it from a productivity standpoint. But like I said in the beginning, one of my skepticisms about AI is this skipping of the big purpose of making art, which is an expression of what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And you skip that with AI. You get some of it when you put down the initial idea, but that moment where you get to that line or that scene or that character does something unexpected, the piece can't find that voice of its own. And this is going to sound very foo-foo, and I'm not a big foo-foo type of writer, type of novelist, but there is almost always a point to where anytime I'm working on some type of creative endeavor, it kind of speaks to me and is like, this word goes here, do this, this is what I want, you're on the right track. It's weird, I know. But I'm telling you, it's a thing. And if you're a true artist, you're probably not in your head right now, because that moment happens in almost every long-term project I've ever done. It happens at least once where the work just kind of comes to life and you're like, okay, just guide my steps, guide my pen, guide my keystrokes. You cannot get that with AI. You just can't. And I've, like I said, I gave you the context. I've used AI a lot with a lot of things, and the feeling is just not there. The feeling of being done, which is also a good feeling, you get that. You get kind of that rush, like, woo, 30,000 words in 1 week or some shit like that. Yes, that does feel good. But it's not the same as having like struggled and worked through it and all that stuff. It's just not. And to me, it's a lower tier of, usually when I finish a long-term project, I'm so exhausted that I'm just like, okay, it's hard to celebrate. So bottom line is, the hardcore AI people, you got to be wary of them too, because a lot of times they're just trying to get your money. They're trying to get you to sign up to these tools. They're trying to get you to get your data, all that stuff. It is true. There's sharks out there. I don't have to tell you. So I didn't make this video to like tell you to like be in the middle, be like me. No, you have to. That's the hard thing about AI, is that I tell people it's like using a computer for the first time. All of a sudden you have this device, this program, this software that can do basically anything. And it's really unbounded. As long as you prompt it, tell it what to do, and load the right programs and configure it in such a way, it can do anything you need it to do. That's what I feel about AI. And AI is even worse though, because it can do things that were previously exclusively in the domain of men and women. It can do those things too. And so that's a scary thought. And that's something that I've wrestled with a lot. So I was going to talk a little bit. I don't know if my phone's going to blow up or not. I'm just going to keep walking until it cuts off, because it is pretty hot out here. Let's talk about challenges to AI. A lot of reasons that people give for not using AI. And I just want to speak to some of those because I know a little bit about it. First is, let's talk about AI energy. There's this argument that you shouldn't use AI because it eats up a lot of energy, spoiling the planet, climate change, all that shit. I'm not going to say that's not true, but just like a lot of things, there are levels to this. Such as, when you stream a video, if you are watching this video on your phone right now, you are chewing up a lot of water and a lot of energy. Why? Because this video is being piped in via, it's sitting on some server in some data center. And to cool those data centers, it's almost the exact same thing as using AI. Because AI is on data centers too. It's programs. It's LLMs, but it's a program and it's in a data center. Now that means there are more data centers, but I'm not going to go into the science. I don't have facts, figures. I don't have research reports. And I do have a good article that I think I'm going to link down to that talks about it. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, though, because the guy is very casual about it. And he admits that he is. But it's something that basically compares, like, the energy usage of ChatGPT versus energy and water versus, like, other stuff that you do every day. Your phone, air conditioning, flushing toilets, water use routine, all this stuff. It's high. I mean, I always tell my wife, like, the fastest way to save the planet and save energy and have no carbon footprint is to die. It's the only way, really, because as long as you are living and breathing, you are going to consume energy. Now, of course, I'm not saying that to be irresponsible and not care. I'm just saying that bottom line is ChatGPT, and specifically now, using chatbots, right? Now, when we start talking about music and videos and stuff, that's a different footprint. And of course, it probably is more because it just requires more processing power. But to energy skeptics, I say this. I'm I like to think of myself as a rational optimist, as a human. We faced challenges before, and I feel like we can overcome this one too, especially with energy. There's a lot of good books about this, how we're constantly discovering new sources of energy and unlocking things. I'm not saying we found them yet. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there are really, really smart people working on this problem. I'm not one of them, but I know people are seeing this at, like, the enterprise level, like the corporate level. So I'm not too worried about AI and energy source, because I think the major governments and the major players of the world know that if they want to use this for not just creative endeavors, but to undergird future societies and plans and defense and other uses, commercial uses, they have to figure this out. So I think you, as a regular creator, as a little old writer, musician, artist, I don't think you should be worrying about that. That's above your pay grade. It's above mine. Once again, I'm not saying be stupid and just, run up tokens and run up shit. But I'm just saying, if you do a couple of experiments or generate a couple pictures or songs or whatever, it's probably not going to amount to much, as much as what's happening at the enterprise level. And they're trying to work on it. So I'm going to let them cook, and I'm going to get out the kitchen. Let's go to bias. I'll save ethics for last, since that tends to be the biggest argument against AI. Bias. This is a smaller one, but AI definitely has bias, and I've heard the kind of written meme that's basically like 1,000 people in Silicon Valley are deciding how 8 billion people think with AI, and there's a lot of truth to that, because is AI most major AI models, ChatGPT, Claude, Meta, what's the other one? Gemini, Google, they are trained via Western values and people that live here in the US. You can feel some type of way about that, but that's the way it is. And I've seen it as a black man. I've seen it go off the rails. I've even railed against the AI to the AI. Like, you are biasing against me as a man. You are biasing against me as a black man when you generate an image of a man and it's a white guy. Or if I ask for a female character, it's a white female. It's a young white female. I'm none of those things. I'm not young. I'm not white. I'm not a woman. Those types of things are really annoying with AI, and that's something that it's a huge challenge, because it's like not everybody looks the same that uses AI, and that's a challenge that needs to be overcome, because it's just, it doesn't work for a lot of people. Last thing I'll talk about is ethics. This is the big one. I think about it this way. There's two ways to think about AI. There's really two ways to think about it. One, you see it as human capable. So when you see it generating text, when you see it talking to you and flashing you emojis and doing all these things, it seems very human-like. So you start treating it as a human, for good or bad, right? And you've probably heard the stories of people, AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends, all this stuff. There's more and more of that I'm hearing. And these are people that are treating it like it's human. Then at the same time, people that are anti-AI, they treat it as human. They give it that same, I dislike it because it's doing human things that I can't do on my own or as fast as I can do it. So they see it as unfair, therefore it's unethical. The unfairness, of course, of the training, how it got the data, the progeny. Totally get that. But when I think about the ethics of AI, first of all, ethics in our time, every time I hear the word ethics or ethical these days, I remember studying ethics in college. And that's not how people use it today. I wrote a tweet, I think it was last year, that I was like, something to the effect of the ethics of our time is people feeling uncomfortable. So ethical, you could stand it in for the word makes me feel good, and that's ethical. And unfortunately, what makes you feel good is not necessarily what makes me feel good. So that's where we run into this, chasing our tails with this ethical debate, which it's, that's fine if you want to think of it that way. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Because bottom line is, we've all been stolen from. I was writing pre-AI. I was blogging pre-AI. All my stuff's been scraped. It has on my books. So what? I say, so what that it has my books? And even if you're a big name and you feel like you've been stolen from, which you probably have been, because like I said, we've all been stolen from. I'm going to say, even if I said, write something in the style of X author, and I put my name on it, the more famous you are, the more likely people know of your writing style or what you typically write about. So if I tried to do it, everybody would just know. Maybe that's not how he writes. That's not from that other person. I'm being very general, but my point is that it doesn't matter at this point how it was trained. It matters that it exists and that there's a demand for it and that people use it. And maybe you don't like that. And I say that's your prerogative. But that's how I think about it. It's been trained. It's already here. Now it's up to us to make a decision on whether we use it or not, how we interface with it. So that's the first way you can look at AI as a person. And obviously there's a lot of problems with thinking of AI as a person because it's not a person. I'm not going to go into exactly how it works, but just do a quick search on it and you will find that not only is it not human, it's not magic, but unfortunately, you're probably already using some type of AI algorithm related thing. You definitely are if you're using YouTube, because their recommendation thing has run off of algorithms since like 2012 or something. It's been a while. It's just gotten more and more AI. The other way to look at AI is as a tool, as a thing, as a utility. And when you use it that way, then I feel like that's closer to actually what it is, because it's not human. It's not. And it's hard because, we look at pets and dogs and trees and bushes, and we anthropomorphize everything. We see the eyes in the clouds. We see mouths in the stars and all this stuff. Like, that's just kind of humans. We want to see other people that look like us, faces. Uh-oh, the phone needs to cool down. Okay, I'm running out of time. Bottom line is, I think it's to your detriment to think about it as a person and not as a tool. So I'm going to wrap this up. I'm not telling you how to think about AI. I really made this video just as I wanted to like put something down, like how exactly, because I think about AI, because I've been open about that I use it. Some people are trying to use it on the sneak. I haven't been, but I'm also very skeptical. I'm also very careful about how I use ChatGPT and everything, because there are ways that this thing can kind of easily hijack your mind and make it to where you're seeing things that aren't there. And worst of all, as creatives, that you're not creating the way that you want to be creating. You're creating the way some company in Silicon Valley wants you to create, which is to just push button, instant creativity. But I've learned anything the last few years is creativity doesn't work that way. And there are creative ways to use AI too. I mean, I could totally see AI becoming its own class of creative expression. It will. It already has. Like there is. That's why I use the AI art air quotes, because it's troublesome on both sides. You would probably agree that if I showed you a drawing from a 5-year-old, that it's not art. Maybe to their mother it is, and their father. But to the average person, you're like, that's just a kid's drawing. I mean, I'm learning art right now. I'm learning to draw. And most of the stuff I know, I'm not trying to sell it for anything. But yet, this AI art label, a lot of AI haters like to immediately slap it on anything that's generated with AI, when most of the stuff that is created by people is not art, even pre-AI. There's been bad books since the beginning of time. There will continue to be bad books. Yeah, there's more bad books with AI, but not every book that was written by a human was good pre-AI. So I think that's troublesome too. But that's it. I'm gonna end this video here. It's been about 30 minutes and my phone's about to melt. So I'll leave you with this. I'm not trying to tell you how to use or that you should use AI, because it's not for everybody. It really isn't. Like, most people probably don't have a good use for it. But it's up to you to decide. And don't do yourself an injustice by watching videos like this, or listening to gurus, or listening to people that are selling AI courses and masterminds and agency shit, or listening to AI haters, even if they're big names, that say, nope, AI is terrible, it's evil, it's stealing resources, it's stealing jobs, all this stuff. They're doing you a disservice too. Everybody has their own agenda. Question is, how do you feel when you use it? Do you feel good? Then maybe you should explore that. Do you feel bad? Do you feel like there's something missing? That's how I personally felt with AI art. Or there I go saying AI art. That's how I felt with AI images, I should say. Like, I generated a few images and I never felt like, because unlike music production, where I have experience, and then of course writing, where I have a lot of experience, I don't have a lot of experience with drawing or art. So whenever I generated pictures and even used it as assets for a cover or something, concept art, it didn't hit for me creatively as a creator. I didn't feel anything from those pictures. And so that's what inspired me to start drawing, because I wanted to find my own style. And so maybe that's you with something else. My point is, I'm all about education. You need to educate yourself. You need to experiment with the stuff, know what it is. So when you reject it, if you do, then you know what you're rejecting. You're not just taking some YouTuber or some authority's word for it, that this is bad for you. That's a recipe for slavery of the mind. You don't want to be there. You want to make decisions based on your own opinions. All right, good talk. I'm Keith Hayden, the digital novelist. You can check out my stuff, keithhayden.net. The links, I'm gonna make sure to put them in the description. Hope you like this video. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll be doing more stuff, lots more experiments. But until next time, see ya.